I'm sure if you want a map, we can have them, but I thought you were just looking for numbers.
I am.
Okay.
Well, that's a lot more parcels than I thought there were.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of like random parcels just kind of out there.
That's I figured.
I mean, if you go down Anderson Valley,
Right.
I mean, a majority of it's Ag 40 if you're outside of like Boonville, Philo and stuff. But like, do you know the Madrones? Like they're a C2 parcel, so it's surrounded by ag, and it's just such a random little thing.
Right.
So that kind of occurs a lot in Anderson Valley, and
that
another example is yeah, and then another example is you know, Longvale, where 162 breaks off. That has some commercial and rural community as well, because it used to be a town.
Right.
And it's actually cool if you look at the parcel map, you can see where the old road used to go and where like downtown used to be. It's pretty cool.
It burnt down though, I think it's when I understood.
Oh no, I just heard when it was in its heyday, and that Belleville used to have a general store and a post office.
So that might, but if you look at like, because we were just having this conversation, if you look at the big players who want to come up, they're trumpets, they're singers,
right.
And that's the issue. How do we open up zoning for a larger facility? I mean, you know, Christian is great, but there are only so many of those types of facilities.
Right.
Well, but I can't do it.
Right.
I'm not a planner and I'm not in building and planning. So that's my issue. Let's open up C1. I mean, there's more C1s than there are C2s that I found.
Right.
Not in your department. So I don't have access to everything so that we can get some of these things.
No, and it's doable. Again, it just involves the environment.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a problem. That's what everybody else is doing. Environment is not, and that's why they're all here.
Well, yeah.
To get a permit here.
Yeah.
There's no good thing down
Yeah, so the land quickly disappear.
They were disappearing 3 years ago.
I know of a couple parcels that are still kind of hanging out there.
Are they for lease or sale?
At least 2 of them are for lease.
Where? I need to
Am I allowed to give specifics?
I think so, yeah.
Well,
It's all public information if someone comes into our office. So.
Well, the ones I know of is that there's an industrial site just south of Palmo Lane on North State Street.
Oh, right.
And then there's a commercial area that was working towards being rezoned up on Feedlot Lane, which is where Bush ends.
Right.
So those
And
two
that's
spots.
been done, right, with the contract, though, so there's a couple conditions they have to meet in order to develop the property.
Yeah, but he brought that a while back, he was my client.
Yeah.
And there's a little place up here where the Advent Mark place with iron apron and linen and napkin thing. It's not on the market yet. I personally haven't been doing this for. It's known. Where they go on the market?
Right.
And that's on C1, and I'm like, damn.
Well, where is that?
On the Newbert Court. So you head down State Street, you go past the laundromat, you go past what is that county facility, that big gym thing on the right.
HHSA?
Yeah. And you keep going down, past the old roller rink and the laundromat on the left. And right before you hit that store, that little grocery store that's blue on the right, across the street from that is Nargard Court.
Okay.
That building right there, that little area right there is all commercial.
Okay, and this is county?
Yeah, it's one city limit.
Oh. I'm not very familiar with Southern.
Yeah, and I mean, we just did too, the contract rezone for Adkins and Moore's, right in Philo to C2. So the world, but it was a contract rezone and we limited a lot of the uses to the riparian areas there.
Right.
And the contract cost be very fresh.
Well, it has been, so that's good.
Yeah. With that one, we ended up doing a contract rezone just because of the sensitive habitats on the property. There's 2 fish pens.
334.
So, yep. But yeah, it's finally after 5 years, that's complete.
Is that on them?
Okay, Jude here.
By the way,
Jude here.
I don't know if you called it.
Thank you, Jude.
About that property doing ocean.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll start a minute.
The day after I saw you.
Oh, really? Awesome. That's good.
I didn't
You
know
had
that.
confidence.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're 3:35, so I think we're good to get ready.
Yeah.
We'll start moving. So let's just start with quick introductions. Let's start with the people on the phone, actually, today. So I heard we have Jude,
Yep.
and it looks
This is
like
Chris
we
Gurr.
have, sorry?
This is Chris Gurr.
So Chris Gurr, and then it looks like James Clyer from Flocana.
Yes, Mayor President.
All right. So then, Amanda, would you like to start at the table?
I do see that we have,
Oh, I meant like you introduce yourself.
Amanda Walter with the Executive Office.
So Vandy with Planning and Building.
Julia with Planning and Building.
Julia Carrera with Julia Carrera.
Karen Myers, Visiting of Cannabis Resource.
Susan Tibbins.
Paul Hansberry, Loving William Lee.
Awesome. So let me just do a quick recap, these are marks, yes, of what we discussed last week. So we discussed manufacturing and how the current approach is that non-volatile is a bit more permitted and that volatile is only allowed in industrial zonings with an administrative permit. We also discussed home manufacturing and how to move forward with that, such as what the various agencies require, you know, building, environmental health, consumer affairs. Let's see, what else is an important note on here? That we will add ethanol to the list of non-volatile solvents to be similar to the state. And also including shared manufacturing facilities. So I guess this meeting, the items for discussion are processing, distribution, and if we have time for it, retail, I suppose we could also discuss today.
And we also talked briefly about events
Okay.
last time we were together.
Okay. So actually, I wanted, if it's okay with Julie, I wanted to give a quick update on our coastal.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So with regards to our coastal ordinance, there are a couple additions that we don't have in the inland regulations at the moment. I was actually speaking to Julia earlier about these. So 2 things, at least off the top of my head, that I'm aware that we have in the coastal or the draft coastal regulations is an allotment for cannabis events and incorporation of shared facility language. So those are 2 items that we have incorporated into our coastal facilities regulations that I do think we want to incorporate into our inland as well.
Can we look at that language?
And so I'll just add that actually we're going for direction to the Board of Supervisors on April 23rd related to the coastal cultivation and facilities ordinance. So the documents will be posted to our website under our public notices page. These include the draft ordinances 10 days prior to that meeting. So they will be coming up, very soon. They will be getting uploaded to our public notices page and then be available for review. But we're really going, it's not for adoption, it's really for discussion and direction. There's a few aspects of both the cultivation and the facilities ordinances that we want some direction on from the board.
You said you wanted to incorporate them into the inland as well. Are you going to make that recommendation when you present that to the board, that these things that are not included with the inland be included to the inland at the same time?
So currently currently this meeting is, or what we're bringing to the board is the coastal regulations, so no, because it's not addressed, not discussing inland. It could be discussed at that meeting, but what we are presenting to the board is just our coastal cultivation and facilities.
And I will say, we are keeping notes of what the differences are, that what we're taking coastal, that we will want to come back and amend the inland code for as well.
So could you put it, say, as a footnote, that you would recommend that it be included with the inland, so it can be part of the conversation?
Well, we will likely say that this is not currently part of the inland ordinance and something that we will like to come back, if it is formally adopted, to bring that back in. Because remember, right now, we're just going for direction, so the final ordinance may change as it goes through the public review process. So really, when we get to those final adoption hearings with the board is when we will be looking at and making these suggestions, but we'll be coming back to the inland ordinance for whatever those final changes are that they have.
I understand that.
Yeah, okay.
Pardon me, could I ask who was just speaking?
Sorry, was that Jude?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Could I just ask who was just speaking?
Oh, yes. So this is Julia Ackerham, the chief planner for the department.
Okay, yes. Okay, Julia, thank you so much. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Yes, no problem. So yeah, that's really, it'll be more when we go for the final adoption aspect of it, because right now it's really draft, and first, you know, the process is you go through planning commission, then to the board, and for the coastal zone, we'll even be going on a step further to the coastal commission, and provided the coastal commission is supportive of what the board has adopted, then there won't be any changes. But sometimes what happens at the coastal commission level, they may ask to see some modifications, in which case we then bring it back to our board, see if they're accepting of those changes. If the board is accepting of those changes, then we complete our process there.
Yeah, again, what I was just saying was that I would think that it would be more in the interest of expediting, so you don't have to start a new process over just for the inland, if you can make those recommendations be adopted for the inland at the same time.
It's the same discussion that I had with Dandy, just so you know we're on the same page. I'm just presenting it a little differently than you are, which is how easier it would be on staff to say, maybe even, this little red dot on your, this is not in inland, but could be if adopted, or something like that.
Right.
Because you're going to get an audience that's going to ask the same question.
Well, and we have, Andy, and we've already looked at, we have our running list of items that we're bringing forward in the coastal zone that we want to make those changes inland as well for consistency across the two divisions. So I think we're all speaking the same language here too. So yeah, we are intending to make the two ordinances consistent across the various divisions.
Yeah.
And Paul and I would like to see it happen faster than maybe the
Yeah, so it's not a separate process
Yeah.
that we could be incorporated into that process. It would be very helpful, rather than starting another process for inland to copy what you already did.
And so a lot of that is staff time challenges, so, but I'm not opposed to that. We'll talk about it in-house, how we're going to handle this, and direction. So first,
So we need to be directed to do that by the board.
Make it so, number one.
Okay, so then.
It might be smart to get up and say that at the 22nd meeting, that, you know.
On the 23rd.
23rd,
Yeah.
sorry.
So then, moving forward on our agenda, I guess let's start with processing, because that's what's on here. Does anyone like to start on processing?
I wasn't at the last meeting. Go for it.
I'm curious, do we have a number, I can't find you online to know how many processing facilities we have in our county.
Sarah, I think, has access to those. I mean, I know I've approved them all. It's not like I keep a tally in my head, but I think generally it's between 10 to 15 processors who can do
Other people?
other people's, and it's not just cultivators.
And
there's several more currently in the permitting process right now.
And how could I find that data? Because I'm trying to do a district-by-district kind of analysis on my own to bring to the Economic Development ad hoc committee.
I'll talk to Sarah to see what program she uses to access that. I'm not sure if that's an internal county program or if that's something we can provide, but I'll discuss that with her.
It doesn't really match up with doing a search on CDFA, which is the state processing for, who would give a processing license, really figure out how to dig that out of their data, so if there's a way I could do it locally.
Yeah.
Well, plus their data wouldn't be this data. This would be more current than the state's data, right?
Anyways, even just a sense, because I think that we need to have a district-by-district, region-by-region analysis of where things are, and use that as part of our economic development.
So what were you discussing regarding processing? Because I don't want to throw something out there that was already discussed. I wasn't here last time, sorry about that.
Well, it looks like you were mainly talking manufacturing and micro businesses last time, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we kind of concluded our micro-business conversation, and a lot of the manufacturing discussions were pretty much very similar to the micro-business,
Okay.
you know, having it kind of independent of the home occupation and cottage industry, as well as kind of moving forward with not edibles, but other, I keep forgetting the term that we used last meeting, but
Like lozenges or?
Other products.
yeah, other products that are not edibles and how we can allow that through home manufacturing.
Oh,
So value-added products.
Yes, is that the term we were using?
I mean,
I don't know, I wasn't here.
But yeah, you know, allowing home manufacturing other than edibles to kind of simplify the process. Because when, you know, you bring edibles, you're kind of opening it up to a lot more agencies to review it compared to
Of course.
lotions, tinctures, stuff like that.
Okay.
So that's really kind of what the conversations were about. We actually finished maybe 20 minutes early
Oh, great.
last meeting.
Nice way to run a meeting.
Well, there's like 5 people.
So Sandy, at that, which we're on, you know, on the phone, but it's not the same as when you're here.
Right.
What was the conclusion, if any, how to intersect with the state in terms of prohibiting any cannabis-based home business?
Can you clarify your question a little bit?
Well, last summer,
Yeah.
then the state issued its final.
Yeah.
Right at the bottom, there was an addition, and the state had decided to prohibit any cannabis-based home business. That's the language they used, and then they added a coda which said that having cannabis-based home businesses would be inconvenient both for the business person and for the inspectors.
I'll have to look into that because I don't have that either in our typed up notes or in my personal notes. So let me write that.
And all,
Let me clarify that for you.
Okay.
When the emergency regulations came out, it's when they readopted the emergency regulations, they put in an amendment that said that cannabis operations may not occur in a private residence, or if you have to walk through a private residence to get to the area.
Okay.
Right? Then that was already an amendment, so when the permanent regulations came out, that just stuck. It was very slippery the way that they did it. They didn't announce it with little fanfare. Almost nobody.
no public comment.
All right. No public comment.
And what they did with the distribution and.
So anyhow, so we're working very hard to try to get that reversed.
Okay.
Okay, but I think that you're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
You know, and Susan and I, for two, I mean, there's a number of people that are trying to untie the local jurisdiction's hands,
Right.
especially when it comes to things like that.
Okay, so yeah, we'll look into that.
So then my question would be, what about temporary licenses for non-cultivation? Because we did offer them for cultivation here in Mendocino County. Some people with a use permit have to wait up to a year, and they've been operating, which means they can operate for a year. So what's the position of staff on temporary licenses on all of these, distribution, manufacturing?
Sure. So we had previously allowed temporary permits because the state had allowed temporary permits. However, we concluded ours at the same time as the state. And one of the issues with allowing it now is that the state does not have a temporary issue, or a temporary license. So if we were to issue a temporary and then an applicant goes to the state with that, they get a full license from the state and they're not ready to operate.
I get it.
Additionally, we can't condition ministerial permits. The cultivation permit was a bit more unique because it had multiple components. You know, you did have the cultivation and, say, accessory buildings that you were using. So, for example, say you had a cultivation site and a drying shed. The compliance plan that we came up with allowed you to continue cultivating, but you're pretty much forbidden from using that drying shed. In the facility situation, all facilities are in a, yeah, so it's, I'm not sure how supportive Mike Oliphant is about proving a business license when you can't even occupy the building. And so I think the biggest issue is the kind of the building aspect. It's been the issue for a lot of things.
Right.
Unfortunately, Mike couldn't be here today. But if you do have questions, if you want to raise more questions that are kind of building oriented, I can certainly take note of them and give them to Mike to kind of maybe type up an answer, and he can blast that out to the working group.
I don't need one, maybe somebody else does, I get it.
Okay.
So I was trying to understand. And then with regard to processing, if you're applying, what are you seeing in distribution? What are you seeing as the holdups on your end when you're going through, like,
planning?
Yeah, for the applications when you look at them? How, like, when I look at something, I can see where the bumps in the roads are and where the stalls are, and like for cultivation LSAs or something like that.
Well, for planning, there really hasn't been any.
Oh, good.
I will say that, unfortunately, the
Building.
because of state building requirements, it does tend to hold up a lot of these facilities.
We just had a really great conversation about state building requirements with Ted, so hopefully that opens the discussion at some level about that holdup. I mean, you know, moving the cultivation into building and planning, everybody's response is, oh my God, it's going into the holdup central of Mendocino County and it's already held up. Oh no, we're all going to die. My comment is, well, wait a second. There's a new director. There's a new head planner. Things are changing. Wait to see what happens. Don't bury yourself until you have to.
Right.
You know. And then what are the requirements? I know about zoning and that kind of thing, but what are the requirements for processing and distribution right now? And is that going to be changing?
Sure. So currently, processing is a permitted use in the industrial zoning district,
Right.
and requires an administrative permit in the more rangeland, ag, upland residential. I believe forest land even allows with an administrative permit processing as well as C2. For regards to distribution, and rural community allows it with an administrative permit. Going to distribution, though, it's a bit more limited. It's permitted in industrial. It's permitted in commercial, I believe, with C2 with a use permit, as well as rural community with a use permit.
But what else is required? That's the zoning, and we know that.
Right.
So
what
you're
requirements?
Planners, so that's really your only requirement, isn't it?
That's pretty much our box.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for kind of more what Mike, okay.
Yeah.
So let me write that down.
And are they going to be changing?
Our building requirements?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think a lot of this comes from, that we have the building code that's from the state, and so really we have to be compliant with that. So I think changes may need to come from beyond the local jurisdiction and really higher up in the state for some of this.
Yeah, and that's what we were talking about in the last meeting too.
Yeah.
Was Ted is, they're going in 2 weeks to do their lobbying, and so, that was.
Sorry, is this Ted Williams?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
So, I was pretty sure. I just wanted to make sure. So, is there any other questions about processing?
They're not processing.
Sorry? Yeah. Susan?
Well, I mean, there's still, that baby elephant in the room about whether trimming a capitated amount of flowers, is the same as processing several hundred pounds or several hundred pounds of hemp. Because remember that in terms of code and state regulation, the nearest they can get to cannabis in terms of the stats they're looking at is hemp. But as someone pointed out in last meeting, when you're looking at processing hemp, say for fiber, the type of machinery you use, I mean, it's way beyond my room. I mean, it's like a machine as big as this room, whereas processing flowers or even using fresh flowers, which require minimal processing, say for like a tincture or a topical, like you were talking about, Mandy, it's so different. So, you know, that sort of baby elephant's still sitting in the room in terms of processing.
So kind of you're asking about kind of how the building division views trimming as a form of, like, I was trying to get to what your concern is.
On-farm processing versus off-farm process licensed facility.
I guess that would be a way to dial it in.
Are you referring to, say, the requirements by the building division?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, it's puzzling to a lot of us, and we're sort of lay people in terms of what you do.
Right.
So we maybe need to get more information, but it's puzzling to many people that cannabis has been taken away from ag because it is an agricultural crop by all estimations.
Right.
Just scientifically. And it's been given over to building and planning, and although we love working with you guys, it's very, very odd. There's no other agricultural crop in the state that is under that auspices instead of the auspices of ag.
Right.
The Business and Profession Code versus Food and Ag Code, that's the reason why. That really is.
Well, I mean, I'm begging the question. Yeah, I know.
So this I can understand. So for Mike, so it's just kind of understanding why trimming, say, for a facility is different than, say, a homegrown.
No, they're the same.
No,
right now they're the
being
same.
treated differently.
No,
they are.
We want them to be treated differently.
Yeah, they're all being treated the same, so kind of looking at tiers in terms of
Here's Julia, secretary.
Thank you.
And when you say tiers, Julia, what we'd like to see, again, to get greater adoption is tiered fees as well.
Okay.
You know, 50 pounds versus 500 or 5,000 pounds that the big guys are going to be doing.
Right.
So
I think that one will have to bring more the tax collector's office into the tiering fees, but I can definitely
talk about sort of tiers of the processing and the requirements for depending on what you're processing that product for.
Yeah, based on the scale.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's across the board, not just with processing. It's with distribution, it's with cultivation, it's with manufacturing. You know, the medicine makers that are manufacturers in their home certainly aren't using the same products or machinery than the large manufacturers. So across the board.
Okay.
And there's room for all of them, and they all need to be looked at differently based on their categorization. However you guys want to put that together.
Right.
Because I'll use this for example. You should really check out this building down here. It's a small building. They're not going to be able to, and all you can do right now is processing.
Right.
That's going to be more like a mom and pop processor that has a separate processing, like processing other buddies than Spokane, who's processing lots of farmers that aren't really affiliated but now are, versus what these folks are doing on their farm.
Right.
There's the machine that we use.
And just so you can see, it's sort of like how I would make like a cup of tea for the morning. I mean, it's like a coffee pot. It's not like a coffee pot, right?
It is a coffee
It is a coffee pot, right?
Right.
So that's what we're trying to show you.
Right. There is differences between. Okay. Yeah, I understand now. Okay. So then, was there any more comments regarding processing? Questions? Seeing none, then that would move us to distribution. So, is there anyone who'd like to kind of?
I was just at my farmers meeting last night with Mendo Jen and talking about the microbusiness and trying to explain where we left off last time.
Yeah.
I don't know if I missed a meeting, but and they had lots of questions, but the obvious one in distribution is it the same requirements? The county, like if you had microbusiness distribution, transport, cultivation, and retail non-storefront, can you still dry and trim in the ag exempt buildings? That's what someone asked me, and I'm like, I don't know.
so drying and trimming are processing, which aren't part of the micro business.
But if you're a cultivator and you want to dry and trim in the same building that you're using for distribution, because the state will, I know I've gotten to a certain point with the state, I had my distribution with them before, and they want a floor plan of the building, you know, windows, exits, cameras, blah, blah, blah. So, but if they find out it's an ag exempt building that you're also doing the trimming, the drying, and I wonder if they're going to have a problem with that.
There's no commercial activity in ag exempt except for cultivation, is my understanding, but.
Well, and ag exempt is really a building
inspector thing.
exactly.
So, again, without Mike here, but I can ask kind of run.
Mike was talking to me last time about if it's use the barn. Like, for example, I have two buildings on my property. One is a workshop, one is a barn that's not built yet, it's halfway done. They said use the barn for the micro business, but the barn is also used for, and I call it a barn because one half of it is barn, for animals. The other half will be, an interior space that is for drying, and we don't trim up there, but drying, and then the distribution for storage in the attic. So he said that was fine, and in fact, I had to use that building instead of the workshop because the workshop is only 30 feet from my house.
Right. No, so, I mean, speaking from the planning side, that's not an issue. I really do think that that's kind of, I'll reach out with Mike after the meeting.
I knew there would be all these questions that they'd ask me last night, like, I don't know.
Because I know we discussed last week, using an ag exempt structure for
instead of an F1 compliant commercial,
process.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how distribution can play into that.
The state, I'm trying to remember because that's the micro business distribution with the county, so
that's fine with it. It was micro business without manufacturing.
Right, because that allows you not to have the F1 compliant commercial space, which is like a huge thing for the farmers because some of them don't want to have an F1 commercial space, and cultivation, distribution, and retail non-storefront is great.
Right.
Go into that. As long as they don't have manufacturing, we're all good, right? So then they can drive their stuff from here to there. They can go to the Emerald Cup. They can go to farmers markets with their distribution and retail non-storefront, it sounds like, right?
They just have to go through distribution.
Well, if they have distribution?
They can't, I think so, yeah.
See, that's the question.
So we do allow self-distribution, and I believe our micro business does allow our definition of self-distribution, which is a distributor at the state level with county restrictions on it, that it's only your own product. So we do allow micro businesses to kind of act as a
distributor,
what I call a full distributor, but limited to.
I think state law too. You have to be your own product only. No?
There's no self-distribution.
Yeah.
That would become either distributor.
So I'm just okay. In micro business with the state, they don't care if you're bringing other products around.
Micro business with the state is not micro by any stretch of the
It's
imagination.
unlimited for manufacturing, distribution.
What is limited is the cultivation. With a micro business at the state level, cultivation is limited to the 10,000.
Right, and that's good because that's where we're in Mendocino.
Right, so it works out.
So
just to clarify that, that's not 10,000 square feet of canopy. That includes your drying shed, your processing area, your compost bin, everything that has to do with cultivation is the 10,000 for a micro business with the state.
Sure.
Everything else is positive.
It's very punitive, actually.
Is it?
Yeah.
I know we discussed that last week.
And everything else is unlimited.
So that's why micro business at the state level it potentiates agribusiness, because the only thing that's limited is the actual cultivation of the plant.
Okay, they didn't tell me that. Okay, so
you can purchase 50 tons and manufacture and distribute and sell.
Right. So okay, but if you had your garden and your what was it again? The garden and the canopy area and
the way it's stated in statute is that's going to include your compost area,
which could be nothing if you feed it to your
Well, your barn, your drying shed, your processing area is separate. Your store, anything that has to do with cultivation.
Is your cultivation area.
Is your cultivation area.
Yeah.
Everything else in the statute has to do with canopy as they tier it. But the Bureau's interpretation of cultivation for a microbusiness is anything, all your square footage
It's not
that has.
micro business, it's the whole, when you have to do the maps for the state, because we do them, the cultivation area includes what Paul's saying.
That's
Right,
correct.
yeah,
The
you're-
licenses are tiered by square feet of canopy.
That's right.
But with the micro business, the cultivation is the entire area, not just the canopy.
Right,
But includes the canopy as well.
right.
So you got much less. If you have a
Right.
5,000 square foot barn, you know,
But if we don't use the bar, like say
No, no, I'm
the
not-
processing, say you don't do processing, so then it's just your cultivation area, like the county. I'm just trying to make,
So we'll clarify that.
Yeah.
I mean, Paul's been working on microbusinesses
Right,
all the time, so
right.
that he knows what he's talking.
yeah, and I'm now confused because the state told me
So
something.
then, just returning back to, so what was your question about distribution then?
Okay.
How, if you can use that in conjunction with a like say your barn that you are using?
Yeah, like for the state, when I talked to the state, and because I tried to explain exactly the same thing I'm talking about, where if you have a ag exempt building that people drying, because that's what a lot of people are drying in, there's an ag exempt building.
Right.
And you want to get a micro business, and the county's not going to allow us to use that ag exempt building for a micro business as long as we don't have manufacturing, we don't have people up there, blah, 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 and no employees.
Was it that it was ag exempt, or was it the U occupancy type?
Well, I think he said ag exempt, the barn is an ag exempt permit, but maybe I have to change it to a U permit.
Yeah.
Either way, it's not done yet, so, that can be done, you just gotta pay for a new permit and we're at planning again. But the question is for these farmers is they don't have to build an F1 compliant commercial space that we know, and that's awesome, but what are the other roadblocks that they might come across? And if they have 10,000 square feet of canopy already, including their compost bin, because my compost bin isn't very big, it's like 6 by 6, so I can feed it to animals. So if that's not an issue, if the compost bin is small and you have 10,000 square feet or less of canopy area, can you just say, if you have to dry, then, I'm going to use temporary tents to dry in, or whatever. I don't know. Like, how can they get around taking, okay, well, because BCC said something completely different than what you're just saying now. Because I'm sure I talked to the wrong person, but.
we went to Stranger Cordova and met with them about this.
Yeah.
And they told us that specifically.
That makes zero sense.
And the only reason I bring up the compost bin is because they go to that minutia of that little bit. If you had a 5,000 square foot barn that you used for a drying shed, that would be half of what your 10,000 maximum is.
Okay.
Anything that's attached.
I know it does.
Then I just wanted to
Anything that's attached to it.
say something to Kim about,
That's so confusing.
so like on the non-storefront license type,
retail
retailer
license,
license
yeah.
type, it's being treated a little bit different in the county than in the state. In the state, that would be a delivery license. But the county's not allowing delivery, but they're allowing,
We do allow delivery.
you do allow for delivery.
We do.
But only their own products?
If it's off of a cultivation site, yes.
If they had a secondary
If it was based out of
building that
a,
was still not a retail outlet,
correct, we only have,
you could do multiple people?
correct, if it was based off of a commercial zoning, and we actually currently do have one delivery company, West Coast Smoke. They're based on North State Street, I believe. But we do allow delivery, but if it's gonna be from a cultivation site, it's the cultivator's own product.
And that's what they want to do, but they want to go to the Emerald Company, they want to go to Emerald Exchange, and they want to go to Farmers Market.
But from my understanding, the license that the county is issuing is just a retail license.
Yeah.
We don't issue a difference between storefront and non-storefront. So if the state requires you to have a retail license to go to the events, which I believe they do, you can get from us the non-storefront delivery, and it will just say retail on it.
So it would include events.
Sorry?
So it would include events.
Well, the way events works is that, so say you have a venue, they have to be in compliance with local license or local regulations, which for us would be a use permit or an admin permit. And then they go and apply with the state, who kind of reaches out to us, make sure it's okay with us, we approve it. And then anyone who wishes to sell at that event needs to have a retail license with their local jurisdiction.
So if I have a micro-business, then I can sell it at an event?
Correct. Yes.
So that's
You're in Mendo, but if you went to go sell in Sonoma County,
That would be their own
you
regulation.
would have to have a local permit in Sonoma County.
Not necessarily. Like, we would take Sonoma, as long as they have a permit with Sonoma as a retailer, say a retailer, no, so say Mendocino was having an event, and a person from Sonoma decided to come to the Mendocino event in retail, we would not issue them a retail license. As long as they have a retail license with Sonoma, we're okay with that.
But don't their taxes go back to Sonoma then? Their sales tax?
I suppose.
That's what I'm
You
hoping.
have a sales tax for the county, but you
So
wouldn't
then-
have cannabis retail.
So I guess for my purposes, when I do a review, I have to have an actual address and a structure for me to review you from. I can't review permits from Sonoma. So if you do in fact need that, then that's a discussion that we would need to have with the tax collector's office as well. Because that's really not under planning or building's jurisdiction.
I asked Sherry Shatmeyer about it. She said, when I said exactly that, like, we go to farmers markets, we go to Emerald Cup, blah, 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 blah. We have micro-business, so we have our business license here, cultivation, everything's here. Where does that sales tax go? And she said, to Mendocino. So I don't know how, because that's my big thing. Like, if we can do this, that's much more tax dollars for Mendocino.
Right.
All these farmers going to wherever and selling their stuff.
And to me, that makes sense because you are a Mendocino cultivator and it's your product. The tickets being sold at the event are clearly going to Sonoma, but your tax dollars are obviously coming back because you're based here.
Yeah, the products, like, my resale license is for Mendocino.
Exactly.
Business resale.
And that's where you file your taxes and everything. So
That's what I want to be true.
But if she's selling
So-
product in another county, she would need that county's retail
No.
tax number.
I think it depends on the jurisdiction. Like, again, for us, we're not going to require that a cultivator from Sonoma get a retail license from us.
Well, if I had a delivery company like this West Coast Smoke people do, and I'm delivering here, then I'd have to have a resale permit from here. If I was delivering in any other county, I would have to have a resale permit for those counties and pay their taxes.
Why?
I don't think you do.
I don't think it's true.
If you're not based in those counties, just because you're going over jurisdictional boundaries doesn't necessarily require, I mean, and as another example, there's a delivery-only person based out of Lake County, based out of Upper Lake. They deliver here in Mendocino, and they don't pay any Mendocino
Do they have to have a
Who's that in Upper Lake?
I'm not sure.
They're doing it out of their home because they don't have a storefront.
Well, West Coast Smoke doesn't have a storefront.
Okay, and they're the ones that are out of Upper Lake?
No, they're out north,
Yeah.
West
But
Coast
they have a
Smoke is-
commercial building, it's not at their home. They have a second, but they're just not open to the public.
Got it, thank you.
But I don't know, and this is based off a phone call I had a person from Upper Lake who was asking me if I needed to give them a retail license to deliver from Lake County into Mendocino to Louisiana.
I know, it was those people that we were just chatting with.
So let me take note of let me take a note to discuss this whole delivery situation across boundaries with
Or
the
event.
tax collector.
Yeah, or
Or
event
event,
too.
that'd be the same question, yeah.
Because when everybody goes and sells their product at Emerald Cup, doesn't Sonoma County get that tax?
I think so.
I believe they do too.
I think it depends on the distributor the retailer who's selling it.
Well,
If it's
yeah,
We'll come back
Okay.
we'll come back
with
to it.
clear answers.
There you go. I like where it
Okay.
Go get some facts, what do you mean?
So basically, I would just love to be able to have a scenario that is approved that I can tell my farmers, because this kind of thing will make me glaze over. So when I'm trying to sell them to get a micro business, because I want the tax dollars to stay here, that's my whole motivation. So that was what I researched the very first thing. I talked to Sherry Chatmeyer about it, and she said, yes, that would be great. And so if you do go to the Emerald Cup, but, I don't know what the Emerald Cup is going to do. That's a bad example.
Yeah,
She's a farmer's market.
There you go.
or the Emerald Exchange, where it's like a farmer's market. And it's a temporary event, and you're bringing it's like a farmer, like a vegetable farmer. He's got a sales license, he's got a resale license, so no matter if he goes to Marin or he goes to Lake County or he goes up north, he comes back here and pays his taxes. Yeah. So if that's true, which I think it is, I mean, that's from what I thought was true, that'll be great, and then I can tell the farmers that, and then that they cannot trim, but they can't dry either in their ag exempt going to get a U permit building. So they can only use that for then distribution
And the retail
transport.
delivery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That won't count towards the state's canopy area, right? If it's distribution and storage, they're not going to count that, the state, are they? As part of the cannabis?
No.
Is it a micro business?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well,
Because it says
yeah.
canopy area, 10,000 square feet of canopy
Who?
cultivation. The state, that's what they told me.
No, it's
So-
not cannabis. It's cultivation area, which includes everything that we just.
For the whole micro business, all three, because it's all under one?
Well, not the manufacturing.
Okay.
Not the distribution, but the drying shed, the processing area, which has to be separate. You can't use the same thing, according to the state. You can't use the same room for storage, or
Right.
for processing, or for drying.
Mhm.
So they're saying that cultivation not only includes your canopy, but your
Compost bin.
accessory processing that we don't permit.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Correct, but just for the microbusiness.
But then they don't count, like you said, retail, distribute, those components of the micro.
Those areas are not considered part of
Right,
the 10,000.
okay, I understand that now.
Okay.
Okay.
But the areas that you do use for, because they consider
Process.
processing for drying,
Right.
which has to be two separate areas for them, your office, your tool shed,
Right,
everything that has to do with
the cultivation.
cultivation.
Okay,
That area there has to be less than 10,000.
right, okay. So then it sounds like, no, the distribution portion of your barn is not gonna count towards the 10,000
Okay, and
cultivation.
we're never drying or trimming on our property again, and neither is anybody else. No more drying, no more trimming, ever again.
And just keep in mind, the ag exempt, you can go in there, but you.
Right, no, the whole point is there's no employees, only your relatives and yourself.
So then,
And that was part of what Mike said too.
yeah.
That could be why we only have 6 micro-business licenses in our county, because of all these difficulties. And as someone that worked on Prop 64, using that as what I really thought was going to help our farmers here,
Yeah.
it's startling that we've made it this difficult, and we really made it a process for big business and not for small business.
Here
I
it is.
mean, and it just is crazy. I just wanted to point
No, I
that out.
think it's a statewide thing, I don't think that's
Well, no, it's just-
exclusively Mendocino.
No, but yeah, exactly, but.
Because, I
it's
mean,
just
the
evident
building
by the
regula-
fact we only have 6 of them here.
Right.
As of March 7th.
Because the building,
Maybe a whole bunch came in.
the building code is a state
Don't
code,
think
not
so.
a county code. So, let's going back to the agenda, we kind of skipped, well, I don't want to say skipped over, but distribution, it didn't seem like there was that much discussion, so did we just kind of want to continue this discussion on retail?
Well, as far as the county, we have 36 outright distribution licenses in Mendocino County, but that's also going to include any
lot
that
of
will
itself.
in any of our other local agencies. And then we have 33 distribution transport-only license. Again, this is for including everybody issuing license within Mendocino, not just necessarily the county. So in looking at that, it looks like we're pretty darn heavy with distributors, but do we have any kind of analysis of what scale they can do, or if they're even up and running, or
So,
anything like that?
just to go back to scale, what do you mean by that? Like how much they can?
Are they planning on, I guess, what would I?
Are you
mean by-
asking about
Would
our
they be statewide or
limitations?
local? We can start there.
Well, we talked about doing tiering, is that what you mean by scale, or do you mean where are they at
Yeah,
in
I'm
the
trying to-
process between application and actually functioning?
Yeah,
Are we
and
saying-
but
are
a
we-
distributor is not necessarily, they don't only have to work within the county though, do they, once they get their
No,
license? They
No.
can distribute for anyone in this
Yeah.
state.
Yeah,
And I'm just trying to figure out how to use this data for our economic development.
Right.
And I'm just trying to see any information that has been collected that could give us some insight, because that seems like,
I will
pretty
say-
good numbers, 36 and then 33
So
that
in
can
terms of
self-transport.
economic
So what does it
development-
really mean?
Yeah, Susan?
So in terms of economic development for the counties, for our counties, I think one of the things we want to try and focus in on is, are we looking at the 6 liquor distribution companies that distribute in the whole state of California, or would we rather have some local distributors who possibly could charge a lower rate? In other words, we're looking at incentivizing all aspects of the cannabis business in our counties, in Mendocino County particularly. And if we have a smaller distributor who's been in the county for a while, who decides, well, that's what she'd like to do, and she'd like to work with farmers that she's probably known all her life.
Right.
As opposed to what happened with liquor distribution. There are only 6 distributors in the whole state.
Right.
And all the other smaller ones over the years have been shut out.
Well, so then I think it would be maybe, we should discuss maybe broadening the zoning for distribution, because in discussions with Julia and Mary Lynn when she was still here, I was a big proponent of allowing distribution in ag zoning, because wineries are allowed to have these trucks coming in and out with wine, so I just was kind of confused as to why that wasn't a thing for cultivators in the ag district as well. I mean,
Did you get an answer?
Answer was that we're going to bring it to the board for discussion.
We are, exactly. So that's one of, like I said, we're going on April 23rd to the Board of Supervisors for direction, and we're going to have a staff report that kind of discusses some of these items that we're looking for direction on.
Right.
This is going to be one of those items.
Great.
So,
one of
I mean,
the
if there's other zonings
that'd
that you
be
feel
helpful.
that are adequate for distribution,
part of the
we should
backstory
discuss that.
is that Lori Ajax, who's the cannabis star today, was with alcohol, tobacco, and firearms.
Okay.
That's her background. So obviously, that's sort of her slant. And if we look at the Teamster input, we're looking at huge liquor manufacturers just chomping at the bit, just like, you guys have mentioned. They're just out there chomping at the bit, and they want to take over cannabis distribution for the state. So unless we're proactive and do something to protect small distribution or local distribution, we're going to lose that too.
I would agree 100%, because I was up at the Capitol when that whole distributor thing all of a sudden magically appeared the morning of the vote in the bill. So, and I was working with the Small Vintners Association, because they're the ones that made me aware of the fact that the distributors were coming in to take over the industry and warning, don't let Hezekiah Allen do this. So you need to know that the distributors, the 6 distributors, they were reaching out to the Small Farmers Association. They're planning on taking over the distribution in the state. And this has been a long-term plan, not a short-term plan. And those are the deep pockets that don't want to see any small farmers. So be aware, we should have talked about this with Ted. I hadn't thought about it in a while, but now that you're bringing it up, this is huge. This is a big deal. It's really
Yeah, there's
Well,
something on transportation that's coming out of the union we should bring up to Ted. I can't remember which one it was, but there is something out there.
I
Here,
didn't even
combining
think about it.
districts. Could we apply that to them?
If they met the
they
criteria
have to-
of being a formula business.
Okay. So what we're discussing is that we have a community character combining district that was adopted last year, I believe.
Maybe 2017 even. It might have been that long.
Okay. And so what it is a combined district on actually a lot of our communities, including Ukiah has a combining district where it's a formula, it kind of restricts the formula businesses that are allowed to enter into a property without certain additional kind of
heightened review.
So are you going, keep out the big box stores? Is that?
That was the general kind of, but
this came about as a result of the Dollar General going into Redwood Valley, and so this came in and applied to some commercial properties.
Exactly. One of the issues.
It's the Community Character Combining District.
It's a great ordinance.
And one of the issues, though, that I'm now thinking of is that it only applies to four different use types, mostly revolving around food and retail sales. So the only issue would be kind of that a distributor doesn't fall under one of those four. For us, a distributor falls under what we call, well, it could be one of two things. It could be a warehousing, storage, distribution use type, or it could be automotive and equipment parking and fleet storage.
Warehouse is the closest, because if
Yes,
you're looking at those 6 liquor distribution companies, they do have warehouses.
Yes.
All over the place.
And so that use is unfortunately not included in the community character district.
How could we get that included?
An amendment.
We would need direction, 3 votes from the board members to essentially direct us to go back and make that change in our community character combining district.
Julia, would that be something that it would be appropriate to bring up on the 23rd? It's not agendized, or maybe it could get agendized.
I think certainly you guys are welcome to provide comments on anything at that meeting as well. And I will say the community character district does not apply in the coastal zone, so the challenge here is that that's not something in our coastal ordinance, and we're really speaking about the coastal aspect of that meeting. But, you know, as during public expression, you're able to bring up anything that you'd like at that time.
Well, yeah, the very first, or the third agenda item is non-agendized items.
Yeah. So, you know, any of these
That might be
directions
a
that
really
you
good
would
thing
like
for you guys to get behind, is that, because that's going to help you, and it wouldn't just, how else could that be applied? So that would hit all of them, wouldn't it? With that warehouse thing, it would hit processing?
As long as they meet the criteria of what the community, because there's six criteria that
you have to meet 2 of them.
You have to meet 2 of them to be considered a formula business, and so then the community character combining district kind of triggers once you do meet those 2 minimums.
I would recommend before the board meeting, if that's something you are looking to provide comment on, go on to our ordinance online, Muni Code, and take a look at the community character combining district on there. And it's pretty clear how it's laid out. And so you'll be able to look through that and see if that's something that would be useful in terms of the concerns expressed here, or whether or not that doesn't quite meet the concerns. Because it's not to say that those businesses are prohibited. It just requires an additional, it takes it from a ministerial action to a discretionary action.
And it's such a good ordinance that Lake County is looking to adopt it, or some version thereof. It's a good ordinance.
And the discretionary action goes through the planning commission?
It would typically be actually a minor use permit, so that would go through our zoning administrator. As always, a zoning administrator can choose to kick it up to the planning commission if they wish.
I will say I think there would be difficulty in straight up prohibiting companies from operating in the county.
Of course.
It'd be, unfortunately, a form of corporate discrimination, if that's a thing.
What's going to happen is we are going to get the Teamsters.
We can make it more difficult.
And we are. This has been going on for a couple of years in Sacramento. This is what we're going to get. We're going to get those.
Teamsters are already here with Spokane because they have to have a union, so it's already happening.
So that's the distribution we're going to get, unless
we can make it
together we can figure something out.
We can make it more difficult. I just don't think we can legally forbid a business from operating in the county.
But it can require that there's more a site-specific review, whether or not that's appropriate for that area, as well as looking at factors. Now, the challenge is, you know, for any hearing body, they really have to look at code-based reasons in terms of whether or not to approve or disapprove something, not just, you know, we don't want this person operating in our area. It really has to be, there's factors that actually contribute to that are based in the zoning code.
Could we go the other way through the back door and incentivize small local distribution?
You said my 2 favorite words, site-specific. That works the other way as well.
Yes, it does.
So what would be an incentive for a smaller distributor?
Based on the amount of product distributed, we could look at a tiered fee schedule for that entity. Can you think of
based on delivery, based on distribution load?
Well, you know, the amount that she's delivering, it would be capitated.
Okay.
because she may not want to be Anheuser-Busch distribution size.
Right.
She may want to be a smaller, just the same as many of our farmers, you know, they don't want to be Costco, they want to be the corner store.
Right.
Right. So, and, I just forgot what I was going to say.
Can we go to
Before I
Pam?
forget what I was going to, yeah, because I'll forget this in a second. But what if you, because you know the collective model, like looking at Mendocino Generations as an example of 60 farms, roughly 60 farms altogether, if a distributor, a small distributor wanted to work with Mendocino Generations and individual farmers, like a small version of Flow Comment.
Right.
Flow Comment wants to be massive, and that's what they want to do. So could you make it something in the regulations where if it's a collective of farmers with all the licenses of cultivation that you could get distribution that way?
What?
Because we were talking about you're keeping the big, huge distributors out.
I'm not.
Well,
I don't know what you
So there wouldn't be an issue, we wouldn't have an issue if a bunch of farmers wanted to come together and form their own distribution. I mean, for the planning aspect, it's just that distribution operation currently has to go out of one of the permitted zones. There's nothing preventing a collection of farmers from establishing
working with a distributor?
or establishing their own.
Yeah, becoming their, so a collective, they would then get a license to distribute.
And that's why I think
right zone.
that's why I think the discussion of kind of maybe expanding distribution to say ag or
Right.
other zonings would be C1s, because I don't think it's allowed in C1 either.
No, it's not.
So, you know, it's kind of maybe expanding the zones, because then that would give local farmers more opportunity to establish one.
Basically, anyone with a warehouse for the right facility, the F1 compliant commercial space warehouse for distribution, if they had that on their ag property,
Right.
they could become a distributor and then maybe be like a hub for the small farmers,
Right.
potentially.
Or, you know, maybe parcels of a certain size on a public road.
Okay.
Because, you know, we really, I don't know how supportive the planning department would be of a distribution company all the way
Oh,
out.
way back in there? Yeah, where I live?
Yeah.
That would
You're not
be a
horrible.
dumb idea.
I'm thinking like
very private rural roads and
Spy Rock, Belt, like roads off of Belleville.
Right.
That's where the smaller distributor is needed the most. And that was what I was going to say before, what I was that it would be more site-specific for the smaller distributor, so that he would have this sense of community with the other cultivators in his area, especially if he's out Spy Rock or 7 miles out Bell Springs, where River doesn't want to go. The big distributors don't want to go out.
They don't have the
facilities to do that. So
drive those roads.
This would encourage the smaller distributor, but you would also be site-specific as to the requirements for security and for what have you, because it wouldn't be as necessary as something that was in downtown Ukiah.
Right.
But the state would still require their requirements.
Well, there's that.
We do have the distributor transport only state and county ability to take cannabis off those remote sites to a distribution center. So I don't think you're going to win that way. I think it's more like...
But that's just jacking up the price as well. I'm trying to think of a way to go the other direction.
Well, Vandy's question was, what are the incentives that you're looking for?
Yeah, how would we incentivize smaller distributors?
And I think site-specific is what Paul's answer is, but how you frame that
So kind of
is what we still need to come
we
up
would need
with.
to develop guidelines as to which sites were a permissible thing. Kind of like what I was saying, where maybe not. So it's like a parcel is a certain acreage and has certain access to whatever.
Right.
And that way, kind of like how Humboldt does their cultivation by acreage and not by zone.
Well, could it also be distribution scale of how much you actually get out into the market? Because just like, let's say, with the cannabis event tiers, there's 3 different tiers depending on how many events you're going to put on.
So limited to how much can be.
So like if you, I mean, I don't even know what's a reasonable amount to throw out, but like if you're going to distribute 100,000 pounds, or if you plan on distributing 500,000 pounds, you know, and so you might could have a price breakdown on the license application fees or the fees, because you're committed to staying a smaller.
I understand it, but then there really wouldn't be any I don't know how we would enforce that.
Well, and the state wouldn't have anything to match it.
Yeah, because, I mean, I could issue someone off Bell Springs a distribution license of no more, I'm going to mess this number up because I don't know numbers.
That's fine.
100 pounds, and we're not going to be able to determine if they are in fact in 1 year moving 100 pounds more or less.
Just like the
Let's track
larger
and trace if
distributor,
that ever
a
happens.
smaller distributor creates a manifest, the bill of lading. It's a standard procedure when you transport any controlled substance, or really anything at all. You just create a manifest or a bill of lading, and those are public records and can be requested at any time. And so you do spot checks. You ask to see, your bill of lading or your manifest for last year.
And when it's up and running, you have track and trace.
The elusive track and trace.
Not enough hours in the day.
Is that all for distribution?
Did you have something to add?
I have to think about it for a minute, because all these questions that came up last night and trying to process in comparison to what's already been said, so I'll wait.
Okay, well,
I think that this is a really good point. The only downside is that the state's still going to require their state regulations for distribution, which puts it back in River and Sequoia and those people.
right.
And that's their micro-business.
There's a movement, there's a groundswell towards local jurisdiction.
Well,
Giving the local.
wait, from where?
Sacramento.
The staff there or?
The people that we've talked to, they're
Staff or advocates?
staff.
Wood's office, McGuire's office.
Yeah.
All right.
That's been that way all along.
They've been looking at this, and I believe it's starting to get a little bit of traction to help to untie the hands of the local jurisdictions. We talked with the people at the Cannabis Advisory Committee, and they're almost 100%, on board with that, because they realize, as we've pointed out every time we go there, that it's it might as well be as a different lifestyle. It might as well be a different country between Mendocino County and East LA.
So sorry, are they discussing distribution or just kind of the whole picture?
In general.
Okay.
In general. So
Good. The urban versus rural.
They can barely
well,
get
there's
through
that, but there's also, Silicon Valley versus Salinas Valley.
Right.
So there's all sorts of different kinds of things, and the local jurisdiction has a better finger on the pulse of their constituents than they do in Sacramento.
Right, okay.
They're starting to get that. It may be still a ways off, but they're starting to get that.
Okay.
Could we also speak briefly about manufacturing while we're together?
Well, so actually what Sarah was intending is that for our next meeting, since we kind of have gone over all the types, kind of have our next meeting be a recap of everything, bring up previous discussions, so for manufacturing that we want to see on our final kind of solidifying everything we want to present to the board and go from there. So would you be able to hold it till next meeting?
It's just really the whole overview, like what I'm saying with them doing the other license types, just to recognize through all the licensing processes in Mendocino County, including local, we have 13. And that just doesn't seem to be very vibrant to me,
13 manufacturing licenses?
I would say that's actually quite relative to a lot of other counties.
We're going to make biomass, and we should be making the secondary products here. One of the things that's really going to help our farmers out is to be able to grow for biomass.
Yeah.
And what would really be healthy for our county is to capture that money within the county for the manufacturing.
Right.
And so I just, again, my own little side project, and I'm trying to figure out, do we have all the elements and all the players? Because people are saying, I want to grow more cannabis, I want to grow more cannabis. I'm like, I think that's probably the last thing we should talk about right now. We got plenty of it. Now what are we going to do with it?
So you're talking about using kind of like the trimmings and reusing it into manufacturing or for like composting?
The first one, including, they also use flowers in the whole plant now.
So, at least for planning, we don't, I'm just, we don't have
I'm just wondering,
limitations on.
Do you think, could there be, is it because we have restrictive zoning, let's say?
Yes, we do.
That's maybe not allowing for it, that should be addressed?
But what's not allowing for what?
For the growth of the manufacturers wanting to come here and having direct access to tons of biomass and to make products.
So zoning right now for manufacturing is C2 and industrial and
rural community.
And I actually asked Sandy how many C1 and C2 parcels are in Mendocino County. There are 342 C2 parcels which allow for volatile and non-volatile.
No, it does not allow volatile.
Oh, that's only industrial.
Correct.
Thank you. That allows for non-volatile, and 460 parcels that allow, there's no manufacturing on C1.
No.
So that's 240 parcels.
And they're all.
But so.
Yeah, they are.
Real quick with Karen, so we're not limiting people using biomass in manufacturing.
Oh, no,
Okay, I thought.
No, I'm just saying, that should be an incentive for our county at large, and then from y'all's department, what can we do to maybe help?
Because
we're trying, it's like, we need some carrots, we don't only need sticks.
Right.
And we've been given a lot of sticks.
Are you talking about value added or
just manufacturing?
But, I'm real interested in the S license type, and no one's really jumped on that, and it just seems like that would be so good for our area.
So actually,
S license type strictly for edibles?
It's for non-volatile manufacturing. And actually, Karen, before you arrived, we were discussing that in our coastal ordinance, we do have the shared facility type, and there's a number of changes we want to our inland ordinance that we have already incorporated into our coastal one, so that we don't have to come back to coastal and change it later. And one of those is the shared facility.
Okay, good.
So we are moving forward with the shared facility.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, and again, that'll be published 10 days before the April 23rd hearing, so we'll publish it likely on the Friday, the 12th, before the meeting. And that'll go onto our public notices page on planning and building, and that's cultivation and facilities.
Yeah.
So I think Karen's point, though, is how do we bring more manufacturers to Mendocino County so that the farmers don't have to drive their product somewhere to get it to a manufacturer?
Right, okay.
Microbusiness. Isn't microbusiness, can you just get it from manufacturing?
But hold on a second here, because microbusiness is only for your own product, and we're not talking about that. We're talking about...
it is one great avenue for someone to retain more value.
So I will say we do allow microbusinesses without cultivation.
Right.
In like the industrial and C2 zoning.
But for manufacturers that want to do only manufacturing,
right,
and they want to manufacture a lot of products,
right,
and the license here in Mendocino County is way cheaper than anywhere else, but there's nowhere to do it.
Okay, so it's a zoning question again. Okay.
And, I thought it was going to show up here blatantly on my little, look how many parcels there are, only 12, which is what I calculated. And no, there's 460.
How many RCs?
RCs.
We only collected commercial.
Handful of those.
Yeah,
no, RC is...
There's more. There's more RCs than industrial. Maybe it's industrial, there's only 12.
There's more than 12 parcels, maybe 12 available industrial parcels, but I don't think we have 12 of any zoning.
We have more, but just maybe 12 that are undeveloped or unutilized.
For C2 is non-volatile. And then volatile is only industrial.
But what I keep running into, and I don't have the knowledge base or the access to data that you guys have, is nowhere for manufacturers to go.
Right.
Nowhere.
So expansion of zoning is something that we'd like to direct the board.
Request, we can't direct them, right?
Yeah,
but
recommend.
On your end.
We can command them, we can do whatever we want.
See how that pans out.
So we've got to do something.
Okay.
Because it's just,
it just seems like out of all, and looking at these numbers that I'm pulling together, that I was surprised it was that low.
Right.
And most of them, 13 within the county. And a lot of those I know are basically vertically integrating their own.
How many other counties have you looked at?
Pardon?
How many other counties have you looked at?
I don't care about them, no.
So, I mean, I will
I
say.
will do some research and
Southern
Relatively,
California has
we
way
might
more
be
than
more
13.
successful than, like, when we looked at there was a map that came out from, I forget who published it, I think the Sacramento Bee maybe, that showed how many cultivation permits had been issued by each county. We're second place, only to Santa Barbara. And I would say facilities-wise, we're also probably, we have 17 dispensaries. I mean, the county of LA has 4. So.
But I only had 14 retails.
Sorry?
I only saw 14 retailers listed on March 7th.
But even if that's the case, I have to tell you, because I'm out there in the field doing it, there's nowhere for manufacturers.
Right.
And a lot of these parcels, because of water channeling of some sort, or setback requirements of some sort, or some kind of restrictive something, they're not usable. And I have 6 clients that for 3 years, because they didn't get here when everybody else did to buy up everything, that are still looking for manufacturing anywhere, desperately. And there's nowhere, everything that comes up, there's nowhere for them to go. Now, I can't look at it the way you guys can look at it, and I wish I could, because then I'd be like, okay, I found it halfway through.
Right.
But I haven't been able to do that.
See, I look at it what's allowed, and I look at it from what's needed.
Right.
And I don't really care what's allowed.
Right. Well, okay, so then, like I said, so next meeting, if there are in fact additional stuff such as this manufacturing stuff, we are going to make next meeting a recap, kind of solidify everything we're going to bring to the board, and then hopefully we go to the board with our recommendations.
We don't meet again, though.
We'll have one more meeting next month.
Next month, yeah.
Yes.
When does
And
that mean?
But you'll have already.
It's typically the first Thursday of the month. May 2nd.
So that's after the board meeting, after the 23rd.
It would be after April 23rd, correct.
So we'll talk about how things went. Well, good, y'all are really reasonable and fun people. I like meeting with you.
So May 2nd.
You're
So then-
gentle.
Well, you're reasonable. You don't feel like you're looking at everything punitively, which we have faced for so long, and so I guess that's probably because you're younger and you're newer and you have that view, but it's just great for someone that wants to be forward and proactive about it instead of like, oh no, you're all still crooks and criminals, and you're like, yeah, well, I'm willing to be one again if we can't get this right, you know. I didn't say that.
Well,
I
then,
just want to be clear, sitting next to her, I'm not willing to be a criminal, I never was.
I don't even have a license. I mean, I'm getting my events license, but.
Good.
okay, well, I think unless anyone has any other additional things, then we can conclude this meeting.
We can.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you, Julie, for being here, and Vandy, you too.
I know, I couldn't make it to the last one. I had
couldn't
Jesse
either.
in my place, too, so.
We're taking all the notes.
That was good. I'm so excited to see y'all's coastal recommendations.
Oh, yeah, me too.
We've been working on them for a while, so we're hoping it's to a pretty good spot. We're trying not to, reinvent the wheel, so.
And it sounds like y'all have a lot of things.
We'll see what they do.
Program as well.
Well, doing an ordinance amendment in the coastal zone is much more challenging than inland, so what we really want to